Okay, so this isn't the video I promised, but rather this is a response to some stupidity that keeps showing up in my timeline here. This is to address the grounds that applicable state laws will override the laws of physics, which is plainly not true. But here we have a really, really crude drawing of a railroad crossing with a major highway. I at least divided it into one lane each direction. I couldn't be asked to add more details. As it is, you kind of see my real shitty impression of a crossing signal and a railroad crossing sign. But no, so real quick, let's go over this right away. This is a two-lane highway, one lane each direction, intersecting with one track, one main line. There is no siding, no additional main lines, nothing else. And over here we have a pretty common scale ticket that I would have been working with at the time that I was driving commercially, which was 76,910 gross, broken down to 11,620 on the steers, 32,554 on the drives, and 32,736 on the tandems. That FAK down there is to state what's on the bill of lading, which is a Sfrta of all kinds. It's basically stating that I'm not pulling a hazardous materials load. Otherwise, I would have put whatever classes of hazmat are on there. So to address this stupidity, the situation that's been coming up, there's this one individual who keeps insisting on my timeline that when the signal activates, you must stop regardless of your position in relation to the tracks, which if you've ever driven a truck or you know anything about the laws of air brakes, you know that we have the second longest stopping distance in the world, second only to a train. So that's not going to happen. And actually, this drawing isn't even to scale properly. I mean, so this is already not entirely accurate. But the moral of the story is, let's say this signal activates and the crossing guard starts coming down, and I'm coming up on this intersection like at highway speed. So this stage I have a judgment call to make. And it's all tied down to my position compared to a position called the point of no return right back here, which is calculated from load to load based on your weight, and actually it's not even load to load, it's situation to situation based on your gross weight over here under that G and your speed at the time. So let's say I'm going 50 miles an hour into this railroad crossing. This right here is about a quarter mile away, which sounds a hell of a lot bigger than it is, but it's still a sizable distance. Like a quarter mile is 4 city blocks. No, wait, that's not correct. I'll look that up and put it in the description. That way I can take a quick refresher. So if I'm anywhere before this position, the point of no return, then I can safely apply my brakes and be stopped before that stop line, before the gate, and before I end up on the tracks. At that point, the first preferable action is always to stop for the crossing. In that point, we're not going to disagree with this guy who is at least halfway there. Where the individual that we're responding to is wrong, though, is if I'm anywhere after this line. If I'm after this line and I apply the brakes, for one, I'm breaking down that first crossing, and for two, I'm ending up on the tracks. Now, there's two things wrong with ending up on the tracks. First of all, that's a federal offense to stop on the tracks. That's a violation of the FMCSR. And for two, that crossing activated, which means there's a train coming from either over here or over here. And probably approaching faster than I was driving. So, that's no bueno. At that point, that will lose me my license, as well as the customer, their load, the company, their truck and trailer, etc., etc., etc. So instead, what we're trained to do and what you're supposed to do is if you're anywhere after this line and that signal activates, you're supposed to accelerate. Hammer down, grab a gear if necessary before you hit the gates, and you're supposed to break down this gate, clear the tracks as fast as possible, break down this gate if it goes all the way across, and then continue onward. Now, I've never been in the situation that I've had to do this, but presumably at that point you pull over afterwards and call after you're clear, and you call the railroad to let them know what happened to their gates, and probably you end up stuck paying for them. But it's a hell of a lot better to pay for some crossing gates and possibly get a failure to yield citation than to have a truck versus train collision on your record. So I'm not saying I'm 100% legally in the right here, but I am saying it's the lesser of two evils to roll through the crossing and then end the day on a somewhat safer note. So just to recap, just to recap, if that crossing signal activates, if I'm before the point of no return, I stop. If I'm after the point of no return, I'm busting down that barrier. And if there's a traffic light up here for whatever reason, because it's a stupidly designed intersection like a lot of the ones in Colorado and Denver, then green or red, I'm coming through. So yeah, this is not the final video that I promised. Do get one more here in a couple days, but I just wanted to address this stupidity real quick with a bit of informative content for all the misinformed rail enthusiasts out there. Have a good one.